at the end of chapter 9.
It really spreads a lot of different reactions. Some of them, consider him a god. That how could he know these things if he weren't a god?
Yeah.
And he's told us all the thoughts of our hearts and so forth. In chapter 10, verse 1, it says that there arose this division among the people, as to who Nephi was and how he could do this and so forth. And then they start arguing, I guess, or discussing this amongst each other and going their ways. And then this interesting phrase, leaving Nephi alone, as he was standing in the midst of them. And
isn't that just... it's just here are these dramatic prophecies that have been given to help them if they would listen and believe and come to Christ, and they're going away. No one's stopping and saying, "All right, Nephi, you must be right. Now what do we do?" It just amazes me, and no wonder the next verses there in chapter 10, he's cast down. Who wouldn't be a bit discouraged?
It's such a prototype, though, for spiritual things and spiritual knowledge. Signs don't really convert people that aren't inclined towards looking more into it with their heart. Yeah. They see things and then they just pass them off. I mean, you can point out to someone, a disbeliever, the incredible physical nature of the Book of Mormon. Somebody writing this book in 60 days. Hebraicisms spread all over the thing. An unlearned person that his wife says he can't even write a coherent letter. And in 60 days he produced. And you can show them that, and if their heart's not inclined to think and to feel and to open up to the message of the Book of Mormon and the power of it, they'll just see it as a copy of the Bible. And it's it's so indicative of this thing about signs.
Could make you a little discouraged, eh?
Yeah.
Like verse 3 says, Nephi being much cast down because of the wickedness of the people. The same conditions today. Secret works of darkness, murderings, plunderings, all manner of iniquity. So he's pondering in his heart, and then the voice comes. Blessed art thou, Nephi, for those things which thou hast done. For I have beheld how thou hast with unwearyingness declared the word. I really like that created word there. Unwearyingness. There's a message there. Don't get tired. A message to us. But Paul wrote about that too in Galatians 6:9. He says, "Be not weary in well-doing." And Nephi is a great example of don't get tired. It must be long. It will be long, but must go on. We sing, "Put your shoulder to the wheel."
Well, and President Hinckley was one to, even when he looked very tired, I had a neighbor that was a mission president, picked him up at an airport, and he said, my neighbor looked at him and said, "President, you look awfully tired." And he said, "Well, frankly, I am very tired, but I made a commitment that I'd wear out my legs in the service of the Lord." And so this unwearyingness, great phrase.
Well, in addition to that great quality, there's at least 3 more in that single verse. Let's continue and read the rest of that are going to be factors. If one would like the blessings that Nephi is going to get in the next verse here, here's what you got to do to get them. And the first is declaring the word with unweariness. What else is... Let's maybe, Kelly, do you want to continue to read the rest of that verse?
And thou hast not feared them, and hast not sought thine own life, but hast sought my will to keep my commandments.
So let's summarize some of those. He's talking about not sought thine own life. Well, we just think about this. What he's really saying is, you've not sought to protect your life. You put your life on the line among the Lamanites. And he had to be encircled by fire to be preserving his life on that occasion, and others we probably don't know. And among his own people, he's been threatened, details we don't know, except that he was up for murder, just a few minutes or days ago. And so it doesn't matter. I'll put everything on the line. And I think it's kind of like, I want not my will, but I want yours. We've talked about that before.
Priority is the Lord's work.
And thus, that's the next statement there. Has not sought my will. Has sought my will, the Lord's will, not his own. And of course, he's done and showed he has done that by keeping the commandments. And this will result in what kind of blessings now? 2 major things that I see in this next verse that are just powerful and profound. We see in verse 5, the Lord says, "Behold, I will bless thee forever." Now that to me is an assurance. It's like having one's calling election made sure. I can trust you, and I know I can trust you in any circumstance Nephi, and thus, in essence, the day of judgment's moved up for you. I promise you now, I'll bless you forever. And not only this, but I trust you so implicitly because you've done all the things, you see, that are faithful, that all things shall be done unto thee according to thy word. For you won't ask that which is contrary to my will. Can you imagine, Lord, having that much confidence and trust in an individual? I know you won't. You're so aligned with my will, you're going to ask or do what I would do. And so I'm going to take the governor, I call, like on a car. I'm going to take the controls off, and you've got unlimited power. You don't just give that to anybody, do you?
No, you don't. But the taking the governor off, he knows fully well that he is aligned with the will of the Lord. So really, there's an inherent governor there, whether there's one placed or not.
The Lord can give power and promises to somebody that he knows will be faithful. Way back in Genesis, he said to Abraham, "For I know him, that he will commend his children after him." So that power is the sealing power.
Yeah.
And the question is, with whom can God trust that kind of power?
That's right.
You know, there's a great account in church history, recent church history, with Marion G. Romney, where his wife had a stroke. Do you remember this?
I do.
And she languished there, and he labored. President McKay had also languished for a long time as he declined, and President Romney felt like he could not just use the power of the priesthood to bring his wife back when the Lord hadn't granted to bring President McKay back, and he was reading, he was praying, and the very words of this verse, chapter 10, verse 5, came to him, "For thou shalt not ask that which is contrary to my will." And it was like a great aha moment for him. And then he went back and felt impressed to bless her, and she recovered from this stroke, this debilitating stroke. And it was just a powerful application of this one verse.
Good. It was a good one. Thank you for sharing that. Well, now, so he has this, the Lord has this great confidence and trust in him, and even though he's so discouraged, the Lord's letting him know, they may not be happy with you, but I am, and boy, that's what really matters when you think about it. Now, what do you do with this kind of power? What is Nephi going to do with this power? Obviously, if you were going to abuse the power, you do things to put yourself up on a pedestal, but he's so very careful.
He's going to do something interestingly that another man who had that sealing power did, Elijah.
Yeah.
He said, "Now, what are we going to do to humble these people?
Gotta get them
How about a famine? Wars tend to humble some people, but famine, when you don't have anything to eat, when there's no rain that comes and there's famine, as it says, 11 verse 5, there's a great famine. Then verse 7 says, and they began to remember the Lord their God.
So they've been on a course now of self-destruction with wars right at this moment, and virtually, if something hadn't happened, likely to have destroyed themselves at this point. And now the famine is going to turn them to a mode of self-preservation because they're worried about starving to death. It's interesting, but the danger, of course, with anything like this is what has humbled them.
Well, a hungry stomach has a way of loosening up a stiff neck.
Yeah, well, it's their circumstance, but we always know, we've just talked about this before, that that's great, that's a good catalyst, but unless they really catch the vision and start to be humbled
their hearts.
Yeah, by the word of their hearts, this won't last. And unfortunately, in this chapter we see that's just exactly at least what happens. In the space of not many years, we'll see, over here in verse 26, we've got things completely turning around, don't we? And it's tragic. You just think, how could this happen where they've been so recently humbled, but unless once you're humbled, turn to doing the right things for the right reasons, it doesn't remain with you.